Celine's point of view. 3 years should give you enough time to adjust to freedom, and your status as an alpha's spouse will guarantee you lifelong protection, even if we don't stay together. You would be free to choose another mate, Bastien confirms. In that moment, a flip switches inside me, and the riot of emotions threatening to surge forward shuts off, leaving me feeling blissfully numb. If that is what you want, I think it is for the best. Bastien sounds very far away, and I turn back to the mirror, staring at the stranger again. The light is gone from her eyes now, and I wonder how it ever appeared in the first place. My future is clear now. The ray of hope I've slowly cultivated over the last few weeks is beginning to flicker. If I can't win over Bastien before our contract ends, I will lose my new lifeline. 3 years later, the steady whoosh whoosh of an ultrasound machine fills the small exam room. A faint thumping noise joins the alien sounds of the equipment, and the doctor seated between my legs grins up at me. And there's the heartbeat. That is, without a doubt, the most beautiful sound I've ever heard, I whisper. I'm going to be a mother. I breathe in blissful disbelief. I can't wait to tell Bastien. It hadn't taken me long to fall head over heels for Bastien. I love Bastien because he is kind and gentle when he does not have to be, because he would sacrifice anything for the members of his pack. I love him because he is every bit as smart and funny as he is protective and brave, because he makes me feel like no one else ever has or ever will. I have to remind myself that Bastien had already found love when we met, with a woman who did not need constant comfort and coddling. A woman who was his equal. It's no wonder that he's always held me at arm's length, never opening up, never letting me in. I haven't succeeded in making him love me. At least, not in the way I love him. Yet we've been so happy lately. Happy enough that I decided to propose extending the contract on our anniversary. I don't want to be selfish. I don't want Bastien to settle for me if I'm not truly what he wants. But if there's a chance he could want me, I have to take it. On my way home, I stopped to buy groceries, planning a special dinner for my announcement. I go all out, purchasing good wine even though I can't drink it, as well as the best cuts of meat and the most decadent dessert I can find. I eye the clock as I drive home, hoping I can beat Bastien there and sneak the goods upstairs. Though the Alpha's family and their betas all live in the pack house with a number of enforcers, official pack business occurs in the government building next door. Some smaller packs might be able to do everything from their central house. But the Novas outgrew the space centuries ago. Bastien and I live in a private apartment on the top floor, giving us the option to gather and spend our days with the rest of the house or hole up on our own. Tonight is definitely a hole up kind of night. I've been grinning like a fool ever since leaving the doctor's office. I can't recall ever feeling this light. I practiced sharing the news while I drove, cycling through a number of strategies before deciding to simply tell Bastien without games or pretense. Butterflies flutter rapidly in my belly as I climb the stairs, my body thrumming with anticipation. I have to juggle the bags in my arms to reach the door handle, but eventually manage. The ecstatic smile slips from my face. The moment I walk in, Bastien is already there, waiting for me. He's sitting alone in the darkened living room, a tumbler of amber liquid clasped in his large fist and a severe frown dominating his handsome face. I pull up short, eyeing him warily. His eyes glow silver, an unmistakable sign that his wolf is vying for control. I set down my bags and hesitantly approach my husband. Bastien, I broach carefully. Is everything all right? Have a seat, Celine. The rich bass of his voice is rough and emotionless. I do as he says. Perching on the edge of the couch, my spine ramrods straight. I know all at once what's coming. I can see my hopes and dreams crashing around me as if they were real, rather than figments of my imagination. Love letters and wedding rings, ultrasound photos and baby carriages, children's toys and tiny shoes, all litter the ground at my feet. I'm afraid to speak. I know there's no changing Bastian's mind once it's been made, but some delusional part of my brain still imagines the inevitable outcome might change if I do or say the right thing. His fathomless eyes hold me captive, staring through me as the silence drags on. It stretches for so long I have to fight the urge to squirm in my seat. Normally Bastian enjoys making me squirm, but this is different. This isn't a wolf playing with his food. This is an apex predator going in for the kill. Finally he speaks. I know our anniversary isn't until tomorrow, he begins gravely, but I can't put this off any longer. If Garrick taught me one useful skill, it was how to hide my feelings for the sake of my own self-preservation. Bastian would never weaponize my emotions, the way Garrick had. But I don't want him to know how badly this will hurt me. Not when I already feel so foolish. I can't believe how stupid I've been. How naive. We both deserve to be happy, Celine. I truly believe that. Just breathe. In and out. You're all right. But I've come to realize it isn't possible for both of us to be happy if we stay in this marriage. The words hit me like a runaway train, brutal and unstoppable. I probably should have done this sooner. He almost sounds apologetic, but his expression is harsh and closed off in a way I've rarely seen. Tomorrow, I'm going to have my father put things in motion for our rejection ceremony. His phone begins ringing, and before I can even respond, he accepts the call and raises the device to his ear. Hey Bella, he greets warmly, rising from the sofa and striding past me as if I am completely invisible. I can hear the distant tinkle of feminine laughter on the other end of the line. He chuckles as he leaves the room, not waiting to see what I'll say or how I'll react to his announcement. The coldness of his behavior cuts me to the core. I'd been prepared for bad news, but I never expected my husband to be so heartless. It is clear now what is happening, and as usual it seems I am the last to know. Bastian is leaving me for Arabella, and the last thing he wants ID, other than me fooled by a pathetic halfling. 10 days. Until the rejection ceremony. Celine's point of view. The spinning blades of the ceiling fan whirl over my head. Their swift revolutions mesmerize my senses, distracting me from all the unwelcome thoughts in my head. Today is my 3-year anniversary. But instead of champagne and gifts, I lay alone in my bed. My husband is going to reject me in 10 days, and I can't even be angry with him. 10. I'm still lying there when my phone rings. Bastian's name flashes across the screen, and I pause a moment before answering. There's no reason to broadcast my desperation. Hello. I do not hear my husband's voice on the other end of the line. Instead, a woman's high, tinkling laugh filters through the receiver. Oh, Bastian, you're too much. I don't recognize the voice. Hello. I try again. The call sounds very muffled. A pocket dial, perhaps. Bella. Would you behave for once? I know that voice D only too well. Only if you make me. I can practically hear her eyelashes batting through the phone. Some of the static fades, her voice suddenly sounding very clear. She moans. You remember just how I like it. I stab my finger into the end call button. Cutting off the exchange before the nausea rising in my throat can overwhelm me. Arabella Winters has returned to Elysium, and Bastian is spending our anniversary with her instead of me. The she-wolf disappeared after my mating ceremony, traveling around to other packs in search of adventure or a new beginning. But whatever Arabella had been looking for, she clearly hadn't found, perhaps because she already knew where it was. But it was simply out of reach. Well, it won't be out of reach for much longer. As disgusted as I am by the phone call, I know I don't really have a right to be angry with Bastien. Our marriage has always been one of convenience, and I don't want to get in the way of his happiness. I wish he would wait until we are officially separated, but he's given me everything. The least I can do is return the favor. I don't want to be an anchor chaining Bastien to the past when he deserves to forge his own future. But that's exactly what I will become if I tell him about the baby. He can't know. Not ever. I will leave. I will be taking a piece of Bastien with me. I will have my baby. I slide my palm to my belly, resting it over the most precious secret I've ever held. I imagine this is how my mother must have felt when my father died. Shudi, the similarities between our journeys do not escape me, but I'm determined not to continue on her path. My mother was running for her life when she left the Calypso pack. She didn't have any resources or plans. She was in such dire straits, she could not turn down an offer for help. No matter from whom it came, that will not be my story. When I leave Elysium, I will be taking everything I possess with me, everything I need to start fresh. I will not need to indebt myself to a man in order to survive, and I will not marry no matter how much judgment I incur for being a single mother. About an hour later, my phone rings again. This time, it's Aiden and I answer immediately. Bastien's beta only ever calls me if something is wrong. Aiden? Raucous voices and distorted music fill my ears, soon followed by the beta's baritone. Celine, I'm sorry to call you like this, but we have a bit of a situation. Bastien is plastered and apparently determined to give himself alcohol poisoning. We can't get him to stop, and I don't think he'll listen to anyone but you. At least, I hope he'll listen to you. Where are you? Loup Garou. Aiden shouts over the deafening background noise. I'm on my way. I know the bar, though I've never been inside. I've gotten used to being around people in controlled settings, but big crowds still frighten me. I do some breathing exercises as I drive, focusing on keeping myself calm rather than pondering the undoubtedly unpleasant scene awaiting me. Some anniversary this is. It's so late there's not any traffic, so the trip only takes a few minutes. I step out of the car, eyeing the neon bar sign and imposing doorway with great trepidation. Taking one final soothing breath, I enter the fray. 3 things jump immediately to my attention. First, Bastien is not the only one on a bender. The bar is in borderline chaos. So packed with wolves, I think it must be a fire hazard. Second, Aiden is not Bastien's only drinking buddy. Arabella stands close by his side, her body language making the nature of their relationship very clear. And finally, my husband is dangerously out of control. I can feel his agitation from across the room, can read the barely concealed fury simmering closer and closer to its boiling point. There's something else tangled up in his aura, something that seems strangely akin to despair. I've seen Bastien like this before. If he drinks heavily enough, his demons emerge to torment him. I've never known what happened in his past to inflict such agony, but it's always unbearable to watch. I don't really want to move deeper into the melee. I would prefer to stay near an exit. I do not like the idea of not having a viable escape route. I give myself a little shake and stride through the crowd, appreciating how naturally it parts for me, though no one bothers pretending they are not watching the unfolding scene with avid interest. The bar patrons do me the courtesy of staying in place, even after I pass, leaving a wide path to the door. The commotion pulls Bastien's attention from Arabella. It takes him a second to process my appearance, but the vivid flash of emotion in his eyes broadcasts his surprise once he does. My presence seems to sober him slightly, some of the manic energy he'd been exuding ebbing away. He pulls up to his full, imposing height and prowls forward, sweeping his gaze across the crowd as he closes the distance between us. If I didn't know any better, I'd think he's scanning the room for threats. But that doesn't make any sense. We're on home turf among trusted pack members. No, he must be trying to figure out who snitched. Bastien creates a sort of cage with his arms when he reaches me, wrapping his large body around me protectively. What are you doing here? I don't know what to make of his apparent paranoia, but I have to admit I feel infinitely calmer than I did a second ago. I'm also deeply relieved to find he is not angry or put out by my arrival. I came to take you home. Hard eyes bore into me for a long moment. You could have called. I would have met you in the parking lot. Ah, so perhaps he is irritated after all. Bastien isn't one for public scenes, and it occurs to me that he's probably especially opposed to creating one in front of Arabella. You'll come then? I ask nervously. Bastien responds instantly. Of course. Say, hi. By the time we get home, Bastien is all but passed out. I circle around to the passenger seat and undo his seatbelt, shaking him gently. Bastien, wake up. We're home. He rouses at the sound of my voice, blinking at me dazedly. Come on, big bad wolf. I tease. Let's get you to bed. Flames ignite in his eyes. Is that an invitation? Celine's point of view. A stab of pain pierces my heart. The man has no idea what I would give for one last night with him. Unfortunately, I don't think he's in any state to make good on the offer. I meant your bed. I finally answer. But I'll tell you what. If you can get yourself up and into the house, I'll invite you to do whatever you want with me, wherever you want. Before I realize what's happening, I'm upside down, with Bastien's shoulder digging into my stomach. He carts me into the house like a sack of potatoes, navigating to his bedroom and tossing me onto the bed. I yelp with surprise, then shiver with anticipation as a very large, very aroused wolf bears down on me. I stare up at Bastien with wide eyes, my heart racing in my chest. So loud, I'm sure he can hear it. Flames dance up my cheeks, and I know I must be bright red. Lust, excitement, and fear war for control of my body, swirling around each other in an intoxicating tempest. Bastien lowers himself to the bed, leaning over my prone form and pinning my hands against the mattress on either side of my head. He swallows my startled gasp, his mouth claiming mine before another word can be spoken. As tense as I was moments before, I immediately let go when Bastien takes control, going soft and supple as he extracts kiss after kiss from my lips. I open myself to him, giving my body up for his conquest, and letting him sweep me away from reality. I lose all sense of my surroundings. The ecstasy of Bastien's kiss barring all sound, all thought, all sensation not of him. Bastien has kissed me thousands of times and made love to me in every way possible. But I've never felt such desperation to make us one. I am painfully aware that this kiss will be our last, that we are running on stolen time. I want to drag this out as long as possible. I know the moment we stop, it will all be over for good. I want to brand his lips into my skin. I want to scorch the image of him, powerful and fierce above me, into my memory. I want to make it so I can never forget how perfect this moment feels. His teeth and tongue assail me, melding pain and pleasure until I am gasping and moaning in his arms. I arch my back, straining toward his body in a feverish attempt to find relief for my sensitive flesh. I know he'll give me the relief I need eventually, but it won't be soon enough. Bastien knows my body better than his own, and he revels in taking me to the very limits of pleasure. He works me over until my body is no longer my own, until my very existence has been reduced to a throbbing, searing ache that only he can ease. When he doesn't relent, I slump back down with a frustrated whine, and Bastien all but purrs with satisfaction. Greedy little wolf, he chuckles. Dragging my lips from mine, he lays a trail of kisses over my jaw and down the slender column of my throat, eventually moving up to the soft spot behind my ear, where he continues his torment. The next thing I know, he's laving the tender flesh where my neck meets my shoulder, tasting me. I can't take it anymore. Please, Bastien, I want to touch you. I squirm, trying to break his hold on my wrists. He takes my mouth again, delving his tongue between my lips to tangle deliriously with my own. Bastien finally settles between my legs, fusing every inch of his body to mine. I writhe beneath him with delicious friction, and he loosens his commanding grip, freeing my wrists. I bury my hands in his hair, nipping at his lower lip with my teeth. He growls throatily, pulling back only far enough to meet my eyes. Flames engulf Bastien's intense gaze, and I'm at a loss to determine whether he is sad or angry. We were fated, he declares. We were mates, but we never got to be together, not really. I freeze. It suddenly feels as if all the air has been let out of the room. I push at Bastien's shoulders until he rolls off me. There it is. The truth I've always known. But he's never spoken. Arabella is Bastien's mate, and I took him from her. He sacrificed his destiny to do what he considered right, to help me when I was too lost and damaged to help myself. I sit up slowly and glancing at Bastien over my shoulder. He's laying on his back, looking at me with such pain and regret. I feel sure he didn't mean to reveal that secret. Or perhaps he regrets caving to drunken lust when he's finally free to be with his mate. I'm sorry. My voice is thick with emotion, and I get to my feet before he can notice and catch me. By the time I get to the door, Bastien is half asleep. I can't recall ever seeing him so drunk. Wait, 9 days, until the rejection ceremony. I wake in the morning with a pounding head and sour stomach, despite the fact that Bastien is supposed to be the one with the hangover. I barely make it to the toilet when I remember the baby. Welcome to morning sickness, I think grimly. I curl up against the wall, waiting for the intermittent bouts of nausea to pass. A bright blue text message lights up the screen. Celine, this is Arabella. Do you think it might be possible for us to meet? Celine's point of view. Arabella Winters is everything I am not. Tall, blonde, and voluptuous, with an innate confidence that allows her to flourish in pack society. I sit across from her at a small table, a pair of cappuccinos sitting untouched between us. Big brown doe eyes look me up and down, her face never revealing her thoughts. When she finally speaks, her voice is high and reedy. Listen. I know things are really complicated with you and Bastien right now, and I just felt. She pauses to search for the right words. I saw how upset you looked last night, and I just want to assure you that nothing happened between Bastien and me. Oh, you have my word, Arabella vows. Nothing happened, and nothing will until your separation is official. I can't keep the surprise from my face. Arabella winces. I'm sorry, I thought the information was public. I bring my coffee to my lips, intending to buy time with a few sips. I barely taste it before I remember that pregnant women aren't supposed to have caffeine. I set the mug back down. It isn't, not yet. I'm sorry, she says again. I didn't mean. I'm just so excited. We've been waiting to be together for so long, I can hardly believe it's finally going to happen. Guilt twists in my belly. Arabella, I am sorry I came between you, her perfectly plucked brows furrow. Don't take that on, Celine. None of this was your fault. I can't say I care for the way Gabriel handled things, but that's on him, not you. The strange prickling spreads, starting to wind down my spine. What do you mean? The way Gabriel handled it? Well, the threats, of course. Arabella says offhandedly. I don't know why Gabriel was so determined for Bastien to marry you. Only that he was. And he didn't think Bastien would go through with the wedding if I was still here. So he told me in no uncertain terms that if I didn't leave, he would be forced to persuade me. She shivers slightly, her voice cracking with emotion. I didn't have a choice. I never would have left if it weren't for him. I wish I could tell you I was stronger, that I fought for Bastien, but I was afraid for my family, for my life. Arabella's eyes well with tears. I had to leave. If I didn't, Gabriel was going to kill me. No, the protest sounds feeble, even to my own ears. I can't believe Gabriel would do that. Celine, you've known him 3 years, Arabella says gently. I've known him since I was a child. Please trust me when I say he is not what he seems. I promise you the Gabriel you see and the man he truly is are 2 very different people. He killed his own brother. Do you really think he would bat an eye over killing a lesser pack member? His brother tried to usurp him. I hedge, recalling the details of the story. There was an uprising. The entire pack was at risk. So Gabriel says, Arabella remarks deliberately, and I realize she has a point. I am too young to remember any details of the event, and everything I know about it now has come directly from the Alpha. How many of us really know what happened that day? Only pack leaders and enforcers were actually there to see what went down. What exactly are you saying? I ask, trying to cut through the complicated histories and vague accusations to reach the crux of her point. I'm saying that Gabriel wants something from you, badly enough that he would kill to get it. Arabella reaches out and lays her hand over mine. Stop and ask yourself. Is there anything you can think of that might account for this? My stomach lurches. Is it possible I misjudged Gabriel? After all, I've learned the hard way never to trust anyone. The Alpha and his family were the first people to treat me with kindness. In almost a decade was I so starved for affection that I could repeat my mistake with Garrick. There's something, isn't there? Though she still seems very solemn, a faint light appears in her dark irises. You know why he wanted you as his daughter-in-law. What about Bastien? I ask, trying to distract her from this line of thought. Bastien was still a boy during the uprising. Please don't judge him for his father's misdeeds. The blonde's gaze is open and imploring. We just want to be together, she confides hopefully. We've done everything Gabriel wanted. We've lost so many years, and the last thing either of us want is to cause you pain. But as long as you're here, I'm afraid Gabriel is never going to let that happen. My brow furrows. The rejection ceremony is already being planned. It's between Bastien and I. Gabriel can't stop it. Honey, he's the Alpha. She reminds me, of course he can. Her teeth dent her lower lip, and even if he lets it go forward, there are other ways to get to you. I try to imagine my father-in-law raising a hand against me, betraying me as Garrick had. I can't see it. But then I never saw Garrick coming either. I feel dizzy with the strain of processing this new information. You truly believe Gabriel is a threat to me? I murmur uncertainly. Yes. Arabella answers sadly, I do. Waiting do I. 7 days, until the rejection ceremony. Because of morning sickness, I haven't been able to keep any food or water down in 3 days. Honestly, it almost makes me miss being poisoned. Wolfsbane is excruciating, but the pain only lasts a few minutes. This is never ending, and I end up every bit as drained and exhausted when the day is done. I haven't seen Bastien since the disastrous night of our anniversary, or heard any more from Arabella. Gabriel wouldn't be the first father figure to disappoint or betray me. At the same time, he knows the secret of my blood. If there was ever a reason to wish me harm, it would be the Villana lineage. Yet he's never acted on it. My sickness began before Arabella gave me any reason to worry. But the stress and uncertainty has twisted my stomach into knots, even as it churns with queasiness. I try to clear my head, to let the cool tiles beneath my cheek soothe my swirling thoughts. The last week has been a particularly twisted roller coaster of emotions, and I'm starting to feel like I have whiplash from bouncing back and forth between joy and heartbreak. I tell myself to focus on the joy and I can't help smiling as I try to picture my baby. Who will you be? What will you look like? How will look like? Why? In the goddess's name, are you lying on the floor? My head swings to where Bastien stands in the doorway. So quickly, I try to sit up. The wall moves away from me when I reach toward it for support. It's not the only thing moving when it should not. Bastien is swimming in and out of my vision, and I suddenly can't be sure if there is one of him or two. Stop spinning! I beg him irritably. I feel myself tilting backward just before a pair of massive hands pluck me from the floor. Bastien is looking down at me with a disapproving expression. How long have you been sick? Celine's point of view. I'm not. I insist. I'm bobbing through the air, the door drawing closer and closer. Abruptly I realize Bastien intends to remove me from the bathroom. No, stay here, I exclaim. Bastien's palm presses to my forehead and cheeks. You have a fever. He says it as if it's my fault. And if you're so ill that you cannot leave the bathroom, then you need to go to the emergency room. Panic blooms in my chest. I can't go to the hospital. I can't see a doctor. They'll find out I'm pregnant, they'll tell him. Number, I object loudly. I'm fine. You aren't, he corrects me in a warning tone. And you know how I feel about lies, little wolf. For once I don't give a damn about his scolding. I won't go. You can't make me. I cry, desperately trying to wriggle out of his arms. It's no use. Bastien is too strong for me. I can fight all day long, but we both know I won't get anywhere. Let me go, I order angrily. A warning rumble vibrates in Bastien's chest. He abruptly settles me on the bathroom counter, clasping me by the arms and bending his head so I have to stare him in the eye. Why won't you go to the hospital? I can't think of a single explanation that he will accept. Long seconds tick by as I blindly grasp for any logical answer. In the end, I can only say, because I don't want to. My voice sounds small and pitiful. Tears hover on my long eyelashes. Bastien presses his lips into a hard line. Not good enough. A moment before he moves, I realize what's about to happen. I jerk away from his body, smacking his arms away as he tried to get a grip on me. I can hear him growling. I can feel the waves of alpha authority he's sending my way. But for once I do not quell. I have something worth protecting now. Something more important than myself. We're a vicious tangle of limbs. But I can feel him winning. I fight like a wild thing, lashing out any way I can, including chomping down on his arm when he tries to wrap it around my back. The force of his answering snarl startles me into a full-on panic. The last thing I remember is throwing myself as far away from him as possible. I hear a loud crack followed by a sharp pain in the back of my head. Then all is dark. The steady beeping of a heart monitor greets me when I wake, along with the uncomfortable sensation of needles embedded in my arms. My eyes flutter open, and slowly the sterile white walls of a hospital room take shape around me. Bastien is already by my side. What happened? I muttered drowsily. You had a very high fever, he tells me, brushing a lock of hair away from my face. I told you we needed to go to the ER, but you were very determined to stay on the floor. If I imagined a hint of a smile on his lips, it was long gone by his next words. You fought me like a hellcat, and managed to smash your head into the bathroom mirror. The beeping next to me speeds up as my anxiety surges. I might not remember it, but I know exactly why I fought him so hard. Bastien glances at the machine, mistaking the cause of my worry. It's all right, he promises gently. There wasn't any serious injury. Just a concussion and a few scrapes. What else did the doctor say? Please tell me he doesn't know. Please, please, please. Whatever stomach bug you had dehydrated you so much that fever set in. They're going to pump you full of liquids and send you home. Bastian explains. My pulse was just starting to slow when he caught me with a look I know only too well. And when we get there, you and I are going to have a little talk about trying to treat your own illnesses. His voice lowers a full octave. And biting. Biting? I squeak. He nods. Ominously, I shrink instinctively beneath his scrutiny. Whatever else has happened between us, at the end of the day he is still my alpha, and I disobeyed him, attacked him. How much trouble am I in? Bastian stares at me. You aren't. Relief dissolves the words from my tongue. I feel a rush of affection for this man, the father of my child. If I was as sick as he makes it sound, he may have saved our lives. Thank you for taking care of me, Bastian. He looks as if he's about to wave the words away, but I latch onto the hand still holding mine. You never have to thank me for taking care of you, Celine. He answers, his earlier warmth receding as he releases me. It's my job. His words send ice through my veins, erasing the warmth of a moment before. Of course. That's always what this was to him. I've never been anything but an obligation. A duty. An alpha couldn't throw a helpless young wolf to the elements, not after a pack member took them captive. His guilt and responsibility forced him into this marriage. And if I'm not careful, the same qualities could force him to stay for the baby. I have to find out what the doctors found, what they told him. A spike of terror seizes me. Have I lost it? Is that why he doesn't know? The heart monitor speeds up again, and I do the only thing I can. Pray to the goddess I'm wrong. Celine's point of view. Bastian has gone to find us some food when I see a doctor approach the nurse's station outside my room. I rise from bed as quickly as I can, hurrying out of my room and pulling my IV behind me. Excuse me, are you my physician? The man turns to face me. Looking mildly surprised. Mrs. Durand, you really shouldn't be out of bed. Please. I feel fine, and I need to speak with you alone, I beseech him. Bright blue eyes survey me thoughtfully. As you wish, he gestures toward the corridor, moving us away from the main desk. Is everything all right? He asks. I don't know. I admit nervously. My husband said I hit my head and was dehydrated, but I know you must have run tests and things. I trip over my words, that is to say hoodie. I mean, I wanted to ask you. Sensing the direction of my thoughts, he raises a pacifying hand. Do not worry, your baby is in perfect health. A weight I didn't realize existed lifts from my shoulders. Thank you, I breathe. But that's only half of it. From what my husband said, well, it didn't sound like you told him. No, I didn't, he answers with an easy smile. I blink, confused. Why not? Mr. Durand brought you in talking about a stomach virus. The young physician's dark brow furrows. It was very clear he did not know about the pregnancy. He explains. I did not tell him for 2 reasons. First, because you are my patient, not him. You may be married, and he may be the future alpha, but we still have doctor-patient confidentiality. The only exception is a medical emergency in which you are not able to speak for yourself. That was not the case here. It wasn't medically necessary, so I did not feel it was my place. You should be the one to tell him when you're ready. Relief courses through me and my cheeks, split with a wide grin. Thank you. That said. The doctor raises a cautioning finger. You have to be very careful not to let yourself get dehydrated like this again. What you're experiencing is not simple morning sickness, but a serious condition causing extreme, persistent illness throughout pregnancy. It can result in dehydration, weight loss, nutrition deficiencies. You'll need to keep a very close eye on it. My heart sinks. You mean this isn't going to go away until I have the baby? Unfortunately not. You will need to take extreme care to maintain your strength. You may very well need to be hospitalized again before you reach full term. I understand. I nod shakily. Thank you. There is one other thing. The doctor says, slightly circumspect. Yes? I don't mean to presume. He hedges, but I just thought you might want to know. It will only be your decision to share the news of your pregnancy with your husband until you reach your second trimester. I pause. I don't understand. I thought you said it wasn't your place. That isn't what I meant. He smiles gently. It won't be up to anyone at that point. Pregnancy changes your body's pheromones. It alters your scent. Once you hit 12 weeks, your husband and every other male in scenting distance will know you're with pup. Of all the shortcomings in my education, resulting from Garrick's imprisonment, I have often found these basic facts of life to be the most frustrating. I had no idea. Unable to find the right words, I simply nod my thanks and begin to turn back towards my room. I only make it part way. As I pivot toward the desk, a flash of blonde hair appears in my periphery. I freeze and turn back. Arabella. She is frozen in place halfway down the hall, and the look on her face makes it clear. She heard every word of my conversation. I went. Trembling slightly, I approach the other woman, coming to stand before her at the top of the main staircase. She is staring at me with those wide doe-eye eyes, her pretty features drawn and cold. You're pregnant? The shock is plain in her voice. Yes. I answer soberly, but Bastien doesn't know and I'm not going to tell him. I promise. You have my word that I will be leaving Elysium after the rejection ceremony. As long as you keep my secret, we will be out of your life for good. I don't understand. Arabella shakes her head. Why aren't you telling him? He would never leave you if he knew. That's exactly why I'm not. I can't keep all the bite from my voice. I don't want to be with someone who doesn't want me. That hasn't stopped you before. I'm so surprised by her direct words that I take a step back. Excuse me, you've taken him for 3 years even though he didn't want you. Why do you suddenly care now? Why should I believe a word you say? I shift uncomfortably. The marriage wasn't my idea either. I remind her, I didn't exactly have a choice. Arabella purses her thin lips. There is always a choice, she says, narrowing her eyes. And this is one too. You do realize if you have this child, it will always be Bastien's heirsu, no matter where you go. Any children I might have will lose their claim to the Nova Pack by default. That's not a certainty. I reason. You have Valana blood. Arabella hisses. No normal child will stand a chance. So what? I counter fiercely. You want me to get rid of it. If you really care about Bastien, you would. She proclaims. I scoff in outrage. Forgive me, but it sounds like you're more concerned with yourself than Bastien. Her pupils turn to slits. Is that your answer? I'm not harming my child. I snap. Her bony fingers dig into my arm like claws. Then you leave me no choice. Arabella jerks me toward the stairs, propelling me to the edge of the top step. Just in time, I realize she is trying to push me down the winding flight. I throw all my weight in the opposite direction, suddenly and forcefully enough that Arabella stumbles, losing her grip on my arm. I land hard in my backside, the IV bag toppling with me, and watch her teeter on the precipice of the staircase. It happens in slow motion. Arabella's arms propel wildly as she tries to gain her balance, a riot of emotions flitting across her face. Finally, she tumbles over the edge, her body crashing loudly down the steep steps. I scramble to my feet, frantically looking for help, only to hear Arabella's wheedling voice rising from the bottom of the stairs. She pushed me. Celine's point of view. Arabella is curled in a heap at the bottom of the stairs, her pitiful cries grating against my ears like nails on a chalkboard. I can't see any blood, but the sickening, unnatural angles of her legs leave me with no doubt her pain is genuine. A healthy, young wolf. She'll heal quickly. But that won't stop the injuries from hurting like a bitch in the interim. I might feel some sympathy for her, if it wasn't for her melodramatic wails and repeated howls of, "Why, Celine? Why did you do it?" Doctors and nurses crowd around her, shouting orders, but no one seems to pay me any mind. I'm still in shock. Everything happened so fast, and my brain is scrambling to catch up. I haven't moved from the top of the stairs, looking down at the grisly scene with wide eyes. How had everything gone so wrong so quickly? One moment my secret was safe, and the next my husband's mate was trying to push me down the stairs because I hadn't been smart enough to have a sensitive conversation in private. Only Arabella and I know what truly happened. It will be her word against mine, and I can't explain the truth without revealing the reason why the she-wolf tried to push me. I can defend myself honestly and reveal I'm pregnant, or lie and say she simply tripped. Would anyone even believe me? From the outside, it certainly looks like I had motive. My husband is about to reject me for this woman, and in the eyes of the pack, I probably seem damaged enough to suffer some sort of mental break as a result. I'd like to think Bastien knows me well enough to realize I would never do such a thing. But Arabella is his mate, and logic tends to go out the window when it comes to mates. All he'll hear is that someone threatened her life, and nothing else will matter. When it comes down to it, Bastien will always choose Arabella over me Thundi. And that means I'm in a lot of trouble. An alpha wolf in a blind rage is the most dangerous animal on the planet. And if Arabella manages to send Bastien into one, if you asked me this morning if I thought my husband would ever raise a hand against me, I would have said no, sigh. But that was before. I'm not sure what he'll do now, and I have no intention of sticking around to find out. I rush back to my room, frantically trying to free myself from the tubes and needles in my arm. Let me help you with that. It's the doctor from before, slowly approaching from the doorway and nodding towards my arm. What? Why would you? He's already clamping the fluid lines and pressing gauze to the insertion site. I don't believe you pushed anyone, he says simply, wrapping a bandage around my freed arm. And I figure if you're afraid of your husband, you have good reason. I almost feel like crying. Thank you. I suddenly realize how rude I've been. I never asked your name, Dr. Kane, he says with a kind smile. But you can call me Thomas. Thank you, Thomas, I breathe. You're a good man. Don't mention it. He strides to the armchair in the corner where Bastien's coat is thrown over the armchair and delves into one of the pockets. He extracts a key fob and tosses it to me. Now get out of here. Hi, Dand. Bastien's point of view. The moment I return to the emergency ward, I know Celine is gone. Her scent lingers, but not nearly strong enough. My hackles raise and Axel goes on high alert. Something is wrong. I start towards her room, but stop when I recognize the scent of another she-wolf. Axel continues tugging me towards Celine's room, growling in frustration. I ignore him, following Arabella's scent. As soon as I stop focusing all my senses on Celine, I hear the howls of pain. I take off at a run, finding Arabella in an open bay surrounded by people and machines. Her legs are clearly broken, and bruises are beginning to form down the length of her body. I rush to the front of the gurney, leaning over her so she can see my face. Arabella, what happened? Her head is held stationary by a heavy neck brace, and her cheeks are soaked with tears. Celine pushed me down the stairs. I'm certain I've heard her wrong. What? Celine? She repeats with a heavy sob. I heard she was in the hospital, so I came to visit, but when she saw me, I don't know what happened. She just lost it and pushed me down the stairs. I frowned down at Arabella, unable to process her strange words and wishing I could comfort her in some way. I hate feeling so helpless. I know there's nothing I can do, but it still feels like I'm failing Arabella. I wasn't there to protect her when she needed me, and I can't fix her pain now. I say the only thing I can. It's going to be all right. Please don't leave me. She begs. Never. I promise. I'm too on edge to return home. Though I know I'll need to go there eventually to collect my things. Instead, I drive along the winding road on the north face of the mountain, heading for the cabin retreat the Alpha's family uses when the pack house gets too crowded. My insides twist themselves into knots as I wonder what's happening at the hospital. Bastien would certainly be back by now, his head swarming with Arabella's lies. I'm furious with myself for not seeing this coming. Arabella may love Bastien, but what happened between us at the top of those stairs came down to power and power alone. She did not want there to be any challenge to her position in the pack, or her children's, and she was willing to do anything to protect their status, including killing her mate's firstborn. As the full implications of her actions become clear in my mind, maternal wrath swells in my chest. Though I might have been killed in the fall, her attack was not against me. It didn't matter to Arabella whether I miscarried or died. As long as my baby was gone, they will both be after me now, and that leaves me no choice. I need to get out of Elysium as soon as possible. My time as Garrick's captive left me with a lot of scars, 7. Both physical and mental, 7. But few cut deeper than my fear of thunderstorms. As empty as I sometimes feel, I've learned to manage without Luna. I've learned to cope with darkness and locked doors, meeting strangers and standing in crowds. I handle some things better than others. And though it's always hard, most things do get easier as time passes. However, there are some struggles that never get easier, wounds that have been indelibly carved into what's left of my soul. No matter how many months or years go by, raised voices, arguments, and loud noises turn me inside out, and thunderstorms reduce me to a quivering puddle. We get lots of storms in the mountains, but I can't recall ever facing one alone since I escaped Garrick. Bastien was there for me from the very beginning, without even knowing why I needed him. All that mattered was that I was afraid. As I stand on the cabin's front porch, watching fat black clouds roll in and feeling a vicious gale whipping around my body, I realize my days of alpha coddling are over. I have to face this storm alone, just as I will have to face all the storms ahead. I retreat into the cozy chalet, igniting every lamp, every overhead light, every piece of wood in every fireplace. I draw all the curtains and curl up on the sofa surrounded by blankets, turning on the television in hopes the noise might drown out the thunder. I make myself as comfortable as possible, lighting scented candles and boiling water for tea. I can do this. I think over and over again, I can do this. I can't do this. All my creature comforts and self-care provisions went out the window the moment the storm hit. I could still smell the rain and feel the walls shaking around me. I could still see the flashes of lightning through the curtains and feel the shocks of static energy zinging through the air too. And that was before the power went out. With one particularly violent crack of thunder, the electricity shut off all at once, stealing the light and noise, buffering me from the outside world. I thank the goddess I had the foresight to light the fires and candles, because I've completely lost the ability to move, trembling uncontrollably. I try to think of anything tine-dead, anything that is not the raging tempest above, anything that is not Garrick. I hear myself whimpering and feel a stab of shame. I'm a grown woman, soon to be a mother, and I'm cowering in the dark like a pup. I stare into the flames in the hearth, forcing my eyes to stay open even when I flinch from the impact of another rumbling clash. Light is your friend, I say in my mind. Not the dark. Yet, as I stare into the flames, I find myself transported to another dark room. A dark room lit only by the orange glow beyond an impassable doorway. The square grate stretches before my eyes, lengthening and distorting until the fire has climbed up and adopted the shape of the basement door. Garrick appears then, stumbling toward me out of the flames, ranting and raving and stripping off his clothes. I want to run. I want to fight, but I'm frozen in place. The scent of whiskey and aftershave fills the air around me, tormenting my senses. I can feel his hands on me, rough and cruel and greedy. I can feel his fingers digging into my thighs, and I reach for the whiskey bottle. But it isn't there. Just then, Garrick's head jerks up, his fiendish eyes locking onto the doorway. Not the fiery doorway at his back, but the cabin entrance. The door swings wide, revealing an enormous black wolf at its center, a wolf with molten silver eyes and fangs bared for an attack. Celine's point of view. Garrick disappears in a wisp of smoke, and I duck down behind the sofa's backrest, choking on my sobs. The door slams shut, and I hear the thud of heavy paws against wood floors. The wolf rounds the sectional, shaking off excess water as he prowls toward me. I cower away from Bastien as he approaches, clamping my eyes shut when he's near enough for me to feel the heat of his breath on my face. I expect growls in pain. Instead, feel the pillows dip beneath me, and then a huge furry body nudging me away from the backrest and taking its place. I peek one eye open, to make sure I'm actually feeling what I think I am. Bastien's wolf has wound himself around my body like a furry blanket, so much larger than me in this form, that I'm completely encircled. He's still herding me into position, prodding and nuzzling until I relax against him, leaning into his warmth and using his shoulder as a pillow. His fur is damp, but I don't care. The quilt around my body shields me from the cold, and my face is already soaked with tears. When I finally submit fully, Bastien settles his head in my lap and begins to emit a soft rumbling noise. If he were a cat shifter, I'd call it a purr. But whatever its name, nothing soothes me more. My panic over the storm begins to recede, and my fears about Arabella and my future trail in their wake. In the end, all I'm left with is my sorrow over losing Bastien. When it too begins to fade, I struggle slightly, fighting to hold onto the tender feelings. I don't want him to lull this away. I want to feel every second of the ache, the evidence of the love I never thought I would feel again. The love that gave me my baby. But he doesn't let me hold on to it. He washes it away with everything else. Until I'm hovering on that hazy plane between waking and sleep, the storm entirely forgotten. Hey, Bastien's point of view. 10 years earlier, the rebels came at dawn, storming the rocky plateau beneath Nova Hall to gain entrance to the city. They poured into the streets of Elysium, breaking off into roving bands of marauders as they hunted those they had been paid to call enemy. The mercenaries had been promised a fierce battle and plentiful spoils to loot. Instead, they found a deserted metropolis. The Novans were nowhere to be found. The mountain refuge was as silent and still as a grave. We watched them scurry like ants through the city's serpentine pathways, looking down from our perch high above the valley. Pack enforcers and sentinels gathered at the mouth of the alpine tunnels, blocking all paths to the emergency shelters where the pack took refuge. I stood at the helm by my father, feeling every bit of his anger, betrayal, and anguish. I was 16, old enough to fight but too inexperienced to truly understand the horrors awaiting me in battle. The pack Beta and Gamma were positioned at our shoulders, my father's right and left hands. Donovan and Griffin, and my own Beta and Gamma in training, Aiden and Flynn. I was never close to my uncle growing up, but his betrayal cut me to the bone. My father was harsh when he needed to be, but always loyal, always loving. The idea that his own brother should move against him was unthinkable. I was rabid with the need to protect my pack, no matter our opponents. I was raring for a fight, eager to test my strengths in battle 2D, and my best friend paid the price. Flynn was like a brother to me. He was the son of a pack enforcer and the perfect counterbalance to my dominance and aggression. Where Aiden was playful and fair, Flynn was quiet and logical. I needed them both, but Flynn was always first by my side. His parents died when he was 14. So my father took in Flynn and his younger sister, Arabella. From the time she could walk, Arabella went wherever Flynn did. I used to call her his little shadow. She was always there, nipping at his heels. Until today though, not for lack of trying. She'd wanted to join us in the fight. She even attempted to sneak into our ranks unnoticed. When we returned her to the shelter and my mother's care, she threw a tantrum the likes of which I'd never seen. Sometimes I think she sensed what was going to happen. My uncle appeared to have finally figured out where we were, rerouting the attack up the mountain. As their gray bodies disappeared from the streets and into the trees, Father howled a rallying cry, and the charge began. The clash of apex predators is never pretty, and that first battle has been scalded into nightmares, fangs and claws, tearing through fur, muscle, and flesh, bones cracking, blood splashing, and limbs hanging by a thread. As Father fought my uncle, I tackled the alpha leading the mercenaries. He was my first kill Thundai, but he would not be my last. I hurtled through the trees, trailing carnage with my men. We warred until the sun was high overhead, until the forest where I'd spent my youth was little more than a graveyard. Flynn, Aiden and I were circling fallen bodies on a jagged cliff, checking for survivors when it happened. One of the mercenaries we believed to be dead was playing possum. And when my back was turned, he lunged. Aiden and I never saw him coming, but Flynn did. My best friend threw himself into the wolf's path, the force of his assault so great that they were both propelled over the side of the cliff. Aiden and I watched Flynn tumble to his death, all the while knowing it should have been me. Whatever was left of our youth died that day. We would never be the same again. As I watch Celine sleep, so fragile and innocent in my arms, I think of Arabella laying in her hospital bed. Whatever happened between them, my little wolf does not possess the strength to overpower the other woman, especially not in her weakened condition. I believe Arabella thinks she was pushed. But perception and fact are two very different things. Nonetheless, her pain was real, and seeing her in such a state brought back every horrible memory of Flynn's death. That day I vowed to care for Arabella as I knew my friend would, to provide for her and keep her safe. It's my fault she was left alone in the world, and therefore my responsibility to help her find her way in life. Before Celine, I thought about marrying her, despite the fact that she was more like a sister to me than anything else. I already planned on supporting her financially, and some part of me imagined that it would make Flynn happy to see us together. I missed him so terribly that I hoped I might feel closer to him through her. Then one rainy night I found a little wolf in a tree, and all my plans for the future went out the window. I knew she was my mate the moment I saw her, and though I still support Arabella, any thoughts of marrying her went by the wayside then and there. I've confided in Arabella over the years, so much so that she returned to Elysium to lend me a shoulder when I found out about Celine's true love. When we first married, I knew there was an uphill battle ahead. I knew she lost her wolf. I knew she could not feel our bond. But I hoped she would love me in time. 3 years. That was our agreement. It had all seemed so logical at the time. Now I'd like nothing more than to go back in time and kick myself in the pants. I was crazy to think I would ever be able to give her up, though I've done as my father advised and refrained from claiming my mate completely. Keeping my distance hasn't prevented me from becoming addicted to her. Healthy and free, Celine blossomed, surpassing her own beauty with every new day. She has become a veritable siren, one whose song I would gladly drown myself to hear. She is a tapestry of contradictions, pure yet haunted, vulnerable yet resilient, aloof yet sweetly submissive. She is impossible to ever know completely, and her mystery is as hypnotizing as her eyes. I know now that I would have fallen in love with her, even if she were not my fated mate. But now, I have to let her go. The day before our anniversary, I'd been planning on proposing a vow renewal to Celine. Our marriage had been a contract, but I wanted it to be real, thoroughly permanent. I thought she was happy. I was foolish enough to believe she loved me. I was on my way to pop the question when I heard her on the phone with her friend Lily. I stood outside her study, at first pausing to simply enjoy her melodic voice, then freezing when I realized what she was saying. Yeah. I have a doctor's appointment this afternoon, but I should be free by 4. She began, pausing to listen to her friend's response. I think I have to try. I mean, I've been in love with the man since I was 5 years old. Celine trailed off. I don't want to make things difficult, but he's everything to me. My heart, so full moments before, stopped beating. Nausea rose in my stomach, and my insides slowly hardened to stone. I didn't understand. If she was already in love with someone when we met 3 years ago, why didn't she tell me? I know. You're right, Celine stated gloomily. I'm just going to have to learn to live with it. After all, I've survived worse, right? If hearing Celine talk about loving another man turned me to stone. Listening to her speak about our marriage as if it is something to be survived reduced me to dust. I couldn't let her stay, just to appease me. Often, being an alpha means sensing what your pack members need and doing what is best for them, whether they like it or not. With Celine Foon, who battles so much complex trauma with the emotional tools of a 10-year-old 5-in, I've found myself frequently walking this line. This was no different. Celine couldn't bring herself to reject me, so I did it for her. 6 days. Until the rejection ceremony. Celine's point of view. Early morning sunlight filters through the windows and bathes the room in dappled light. I feel Bastien tracing the patterns, its rays form on my skin, trailing his fingers down my spine, circling the shadows and delicate illuminations across my ribcage. At some point last night he must have shifted and carried me to bed. Now he lies beneath me, the steady rise and fall of his chest rocking my body like a boat bobbing on the waves. I stretch drowsily, turning my face up to his. His eyes are already on me, his rugged features radiating warmth. Good morning, little wolf. I snuggle closer, reacting rather than thinking. Good morning. There are dark circles beneath Bastien's eyes. You didn't sleep, number, he confirms. I was a bit distracted. I can feel the blood drain from my face. Is Arabella? She's going to be fine, Bastien assures me. You, on the other hand, he trails off ominously. I stiffen in his arms. Bastien, I didn't do it. Frowning, he catches my cheek in his palm. I know that, sweetheart, he continues, petting me, treating me as he might a skittish horse. Arabella was distressed and confused. She was in a lot of pain, 40, that's all. No, it wasn't. I want to say, but I hold my tongue. If you know I didn't push her, why wouldn't I be okay? Bastien raises a stern brow. Because you, my sweet wife, are in a lot of trouble. But I didn't do anything. Is that so? He rises with predatory grace, sitting up in the bed and pulling me into his lap. My legs straddle his thighs and I peek up at him from beneath my lashes. Have you forgotten already? Bastien's rough voice sends a shiver down my spine as his hand closes around my nape. You didn't tell anyone you were sick. You flagrantly disobeyed me, fun. Though I admit that was more the fever's fault than your own, he concedes. But you were perfectly lucid when you left the hospital without being discharged or leaving so much as a note, and then isolated yourself when your physical and mental health were at stake. I stare at my lap. How did you know I was here anyway? I tracked the car and sent Aiden to keep watch. It's a good thing too, or I wouldn't have known about the storm, said. It didn't hit the leeward side of the mountain. Bastian's fingers sink into my long hair, tangling in the thick tresses. He tugs it gently, pulling my attention to his foreboding expression. You owe me some explanations. Maybe it's my pregnancy hormones, but suddenly I feel like crying. I don't want to explain. I was trying to do what was best for all of us. It isn't fair that Bastian is angry with me. I didn't ask you to come, you know. His brow furrows in confusion. What? If you didn't want to leave Arabella, you didn't have to. I declare sulkily. It was just a storm. I'm going to have to get over this phobia eventually anyway. His molten eyes search my face, as if trying to unearth some mystery from my skin. I'm an alpha, he finally reminds me. I don't do anything I don't want to do, Celine. I can't hold back my derision. Please, Bastian, that's all you ever do. Your entire existence is caught up in these notions of duty and obligation, and you fulfill them regardless of what it costs you. In my head, my voice sounds firm and strong. Out loud, I sound like a riled mouse. Bastian is still looking at me with dark intensity. And what does it cost me? Everything. I murmur. You'd give your life if it came to it. That's what leading a pack is, Celine. He states gently, but you're wrong if you think it isn't a choice. I didn't have to lead. I chose this life, and I choose if and how I fulfill my duties. He doesn't see it. I realize he doesn't see how much I've taken from him. Frustration pricks my every nerve ending, overwhelming me with emotions. I cannot untangle, let alone relieve. I don't know what to do. Everything is coming down on me at once. Every time I think I've pinpointed a feeling, a new one pushes it out of the way. Sensing my agitation, Bastian pulls me into his arms, tucking my body against his chest. Skin on skin. I feel his heart beating in perfect synchrony with my own. The pressure of his embrace forces some of the anxious energy out of me, and his warm hands begin to stroke my spine in a persistent caress. His lips graze my ear. What's going on? Little wolf, I want to speak. I want to tell him every thought running through my head, yet when I open my mouth nothing comes out. It often happens like this steamy a maelstrom of feelings. I don't know how to process, let alone express. After so many years spent in solitude, it feels like I've lost the ability to communicate. Even when I want to speak, I can't find the words speak. I can't find my voice. So I lie. Nothing, I finally say, nuzzling my face into the crook of his neck. Nothing at all. Hey, 5 days, until the rejection ceremony. It's going to be fine. Bastian promises me. We're standing side by side in our bathroom, staring at our reflections in the mirror. I'm wearing a long, flowing dress, the exact shade of Bastian's eyes, while he sports a sleek black tux. Given my aversion to crowds, we haven't been to many formal events over the last few years. But missing this evening is not an option. Tonight is Gabriel's 60th birthday. A momentous event bringing wolves from far and wide to our secluded city. The alphas of the Eros and Vega packs would be in attendance with their families, as well as artists and thought leaders from across the continent. I will have to play hostess with Bastian's mother Odette. I love the elder woman dearly, but I will never be comfortable greeting strangers as friends. My only comfort is knowing that Bastian will be by my side throughout the event. My lip quirks as I sweep my gaze down his body. Your tie is crooked, I tell him, eyeing the lopsided bow at his collar. Bastian grumbles, pulling the satiny fabric until it comes undone. I hate these things. I turn my back on the mirror, stepping in front of him to fix the garment. I fiddle with the sleek black body, painfully aware of Bastian's intent gaze. He's been looking at me like I'm a particularly tasty snack ever since I donned this dress. And his attention is confusing me to say the least. I rise onto my toes, trying to bring my eyes level with his collar and failing. The next thing I know, I'm sitting on the counter with Bastien between my legs. I emit a startled chuckle, reaching for the garment once more. I've barely started when Bastien drops his face to my neck, breathing me in. "Goddess, you smell good," he rumbles, nuzzling my throat to add his own scent on top of my perfume. Heat begins pooling in my belly, no matter how many times Bastien's scent marks me. The possessive gesture always turns my insides to mush. It was confusing at first. I didn't understand why he would be so territorial over someone he didn't love. But over time I realized love doesn't have much to do with it. Regardless of feelings, I'm his wife. Sivan, his wolf, considers me his, and he does not share. My mouth goes dry as his scruffy cheeks abrade my sensitive skin. "I can't do this when you're doing I gasp when he nibbles the soft spot behind my ear. "I'm sorry," he croons, sounding anything but, "I'll behave." I narrow my eyes, not believing him for a moment, but trying to focus on the task at hand. I carefully wind the fabric into the correct knot, pulling it taut and smiling at my handiwork. "There," I grin. "Now you're ready. And what about you?" He's kissing me again, his large hands skimming down my bare legs beneath my skirt. "I just need my shoes," I tell him, starting to jump down. Instead, his strong hands lock me in place. "Let me," Bastien says, the words as if they are a suggestion, but we both know they're an order. A moment later he appears with my heels in hand, kneeling down to slip them onto my feet. He kisses my ankle as he fastens the strap, sending bolts of lighting through my body. "What are you doing?" I implore. "You're about to reject me in 5 days. He rises to his feet with a smirk. "Have you forgotten what kissing is, little wolf?" He teases, "Do you need a refresher course?" My spine turns to liquid. But before I can answer, a strident ringing fills the air. Both our eyes dart to the cell phone in his pocket. Bastien pulls it free, reading the caller ID and wrenching away from me all at once. "What's wrong?" he says, by way of greeting. There is only one person who could possibly make him react this way. I have no doubt Arabella is on the other end of the line. "When?" Bastien is saying. I slide gingerly from the counter. A dull ache blooming in my chest. I have a very bad feeling about this phone call. I can't. Silver eyes bore into me. The gala is in half an hour. A familiar queasy sensation curdles in my stomach, and I'm not sure if it's dread or morning sickness. "You're sure?" Bastien sighs. "I'll be there as fast as I can." When he finally ends the call, I can see the painful truth in his expression. "You aren't coming?" I ask hoarsely. Bastien grimaces, crossing to me and taking my face in his hands. "I'll come the minute I'm free, I promise," he vows. "But this can't wait, Bastien. It's your father's birthday." "I know, sweetheart." He sighs again, and I think I hear genuine regret in his voice. "But this is urgent. I'm sorry." I watch Bastien's retreating back as he stalks out the door without another word. Shock and anxiety war for dominance in my mind, and I'm irrationally angry with myself for feeling them. Bastien isn't mine anymore. I don't have the right to be put out over this. Right or wrong, the hairline fracture that severed my heart when Bastien announced he was rejecting me begins to split wider and wider apart as I watch him leave, knowing he's headed for the arms of another woman. Celine's point of view. I've never seen so many people in one place. Nova Hall is packed to the gills with glittering bodies. Wolves from across the pack have gathered to celebrate Gabriel, all decked out in their finest. I know most of the people here, having met them at some point or another over the last 3 years, but at least a quarter of the guests are outsiders. Members of a dozen other packs have come to pay their respects, for tonight not only marks Gabriel's birthday, but also his 30th anniversary as Alpha. There is no question my father-in-law has been a highly influential leader, brokering unprecedented alliances with powerful packs across the continent. I stand close to my mother-in-law's side, wishing I could go back to the pack house. I hate these events, which always leave me feeling scrutinized and judged by the prying eyes of pack socialites. Most pack members view me as either an oddity or a charity case. But there is one group in particular who took great offense when Bastien took me for a mate. Everyone knows my story. My escape and Garrick's subsequent disappearance was headline news in Elysium, and if it weren't for Gabriel and Bastien, I probably would have become something of a pack sideshow. With all our other concerns, I'm not sure any of us considered that I might need protection from negative attention within the pack, but time proved it was very necessary. Bastien had been the Nova's most eligible bachelor since he was a boy, and the pack's unmated women took our marriage especially hard. It was one thing when people thought he would marry Arabella She, fit the role of an alpha's wife, the de facto leader of Novan females. I did not. I am not a leader, and standing next to Bastien, I look more like his kidnapping victim than a partner. I am short, scrawny and timid, a halfling with strange eyes and nothing but wasted potential. The fact that I am a Valana ceased to matter when I lost Luna. I am an incomplete person by definition, and that might be all right if I held no power. But the idea of having a woman without a wolf helping to lead the pack did not sit well with a great many people. I have no doubt the pack will be relieved when our rejection ceremony is announced, but everyone agreed it should wait until after the gala. No one wanted to pull attention from Gabriel on his special night. I can feel 100 eyes crawling over my form. I wish Bastien was here. I adore Odette and find her a lovely calming presence. But no one puts me at ease like my husband. He is the only person with whom I don't have to constantly worry about my safety, because I know he is looking out for me better than I ever could. I wonder what's going on with Arabella. Has she taken a turn for the worse? Is that why he ran out the way he did? It's hard to fathom what could go wrong now that she's mostly healed, but it also wouldn't surprise me given the way she's been milking her injuries. It would be perfectly in character for Arabella to conjure some new crises when I need Bastien most. I'm still struggling to sort through everything that happened between us. Her allegations against Gabriel still ring in my ears, posing far too many uncomfortable questions. There's no doubt she cannot be trusted when it comes to my well-being, but that doesn't automatically negate her accusations. The fact that she's a terrible person does not mean she's never been wronged. In fact, one could argue that being terrible makes some past trauma more likely. I have a hard time believing it of my father-in-law, but I also remember the look in Bastien's eyes when he told me he doesn't do anything. He doesn't want to 70, the same words Arabella used to ask me why he'd gone through with our marriage. I still don't have a clear answer, nor do I know what to do about her attempted assault. I'm extremely concerned about what is going to happen when she gets released from the hospital. I know I don't have to worry about her sharing my news with anyone, but I'm afraid she won't give up after just one try. How did this become such a mess? After a while, Odette leaves me to check on Gabriel, and I find myself very literally thrown to the wolves. Poor thing. Someone titters behind me, sounding more disdainful rather than truly sympathetic. If Bastien hadn't married her, she'd be in a gutter somewhere. He's so noble. I can't imagine how hard it is for him to be with her. The woman's words are no surprise, Fidei. It's no secret that Bastien married me out of pity and obligation, but they still hurt. It's no wonder he's never claimed her. Another woman adds, "Can you imagine your husband never marking you? It's so tragic." Like her companion, This she-wolf's voice suggested. She felt the opposite of her words. Well, it's not like you can blame him. The first woman scoffs. You don't breed a thoroughbred with a mule. The women cackle cruelly, and I can't take any more. I walk away, slipping out the garden door to stroll alongside the saltwater pool, bisecting the blossoming green space. I hold my head up high as I move through the people, but it seems as if there is no escape from gossiping shrews. I heard he's rejecting her, so she pushed Arabella down a flight of stairs. I don't recognize the speaker, but her words make my blood run cold. Conflict is not in my nature. Indeed, Garrick spent years training my body to associate confrontations of any size with pain, and the after effects remain to this day. But this is too much. Even if the ensuing argument triggers a PTSD episode, I cannot let this rumor go uncontested. I turn towards the woman who spoke such cruel words and find her watching me. It's clear she'd wanted me to hear her. Her features are alight with malicious glee as I approach. I didn't push anyone down any stairs, I announce coolly. Her painted lips twist into a cruel smirk. But he is rejecting you, isn't he? What of it? I counter. People have rejection ceremonies all the time. This is not entirely true. Rejection ceremonies are actually relatively rare, but they are still common enough in pack society to be considered normal. The she-wolf flips a curtain of long red hair over her shoulder. People may, alphas don't. I don't know where the fire in my belly came from, but rather than shutting down, I fight back. Actually, it seems they do, since Bastian is an alpha, and he's having one. And rightly so. It's far past time he got rid of you. She bites back, sharing a cruel smile with her friends. I scowl. If you think you'll have a chance with him once he's single, you're sorely mistaken, I tell them. He's already found his mate. The redhead shrugs. Mates aren't forever. Maybe I'll take a page out of your book and pay Arabella a little visit. I already told you. I snap. I didn't push her. She sidles forward with a sympathetic pout. Oh, honey, you don't have to pretend. I don't blame you. If she was in her wolf form, I'm sure she'd be baring her fangs at me. Besides, it's not like anyone would be surprised. You're not even a whole person after all. You can't be expected to function in a civilized society. Jabs like this still hurt me. No matter how much time passes, there is too much truth in them for me to brush off. But she doesn't need to know that. If I'm such a weak little halfling, how do you think I managed to take down a fully grown she-wolf? I don't know, she sniggers. Maybe you snuck up on her from behind. I muster a glare. Why are you like this? What have I ever done to you? The she-wolf closes in on me, and I reflexively retreat, backing towards the edge of the pool. Growing up, we all knew Bastian would be alpha one day. We all fought for him. She explains haughtily, we would have accepted whichever one of us he chose Fuan, after all. We all put in the time. Then you appeared. She spits the words at my feet. You who never so much as laid eyes on him before you escaped your little hovel. All the beautiful, brilliant she-wolves out there, and he picked a dirty little gutter rat. The woman's eyes flash with true hatred. You didn't earn him. You didn't earn your position in the pack, and you certainly don't lead us now. Bastian deserves better. She hisses. And for once Arabella isn't here to distract him, so why don't you do us all a favor and get out of the way? Using all her strength, the she-wolf shoves me backward, her palms connecting with my shoulders and launching my small body straight into the pool. The water closes over my head as I sink, limbs thrashing. I never learned how to swim, and while my wolf might have been able to pick up the skill without being taught, she isn't here to help me. My legs tangle in the heavy skirts of my dress, and my arms flounder frantically, trying and failing to propel me to the surface. I hadn't been prepared for the water, not realizing how close we had moved throughout the course of our argument. I didn't have the chance to take a deep breath. I splashed into the water with my mouth open, and now it swiftly fills my lungs. Darkness consumes the edges of my vision. I don't have the time to be angry or afraid. There is only time for my panic-stricken brain to realize I'm about to die. Celine's point of view. My lungs burn as I choke on the salty pool water, trying desperately to keep my eyes open. A razor-sharp pain explodes in my chest, tearing me from the inside out, as my airway seals shut and all the oxygen leaves my body. As if I know in my heart, it's over now, and I can finally rest. As my eyes shutter for the last time, I catch a final glimpse of the mortal world, an eerie cauldron of blue and green, dotted with the reflections of the garden's fairy lights. The yellow orbs are broken only by the soft air pockets floating skyward, and then an explosion of bubbles and foam. An iron bar circles my middle, and suddenly, I'm ascending, catapulting towards the surface. Salt water spews from my mouth as I burst into the fresh air. I cough violently, unable to focus on anything but gulping in as much oxygen as I possibly can. I'm floating towards the pool's edge, vaguely aware of a warm body holding me aloft. Half a dozen hands pull me from my watery coffin, rolling me onto my stomach so that I can expel every last drop of fluid from my lungs. A heavy blanket settles over my shoulders, and I realize I'm shivering like a wet chihuahua. Familiar voices break through the haze, fussing and calling my name. I crack my eyes open to find Odette and Gabriel sitting on my left, both bone dry. I turn my head in the opposite direction, zeroing in on the man dripping water from every thread of his ruined tux. His hair is so dark it's almost black, and he watches me with piercing green eyes. He is not nearly so large as Bastien, but he is plenty imposing. Only his dimples soften the angular lines of his face, giving his stony visage an oddly boyish look. He has the undeniable air of an alpha wolf. But I'm sure I've never seen him before. He must be from another pack. I realize, thank you. I gasp, reaching for his hand. The man clasps my palm, squeezing gently. Don't mention it, Celine, sweetheart. What happened? Odette is hovering over me like a frenzied mother hen, distress drawn in every line of her beautiful face. Give her some space to breathe, my love, Gabriel says, scooping me up. Let's get her inside. As the crowd of guests part to let the alpha pass, I hear my mother-in-law fussing over my savior. You must be freezing. Please come inside and we'll find you some dry clothes, Mr. Kavanaugh. I recognize the name. The Kavanaughs lead the Eros pack. This man is too young to be the alpha, but I'd bet good money he's next in line. Gabriel carries me up to one of the hall's social parlors, his mate close on his tail, commanding the various sentinels to bring blankets and dry clothes. Every inch of my body feels bruised and drained. I never knew drowning was so painful and exhausting. I'm barely conscious as Gabriel deposits me on a plush settee and Odette gets to work, stripping my sopping dress from my trembling body. She bundles blankets around me, only letting the men enter the room once I'm completely covered. My mother-in-law strokes my drenched hair. I'll call Bastien, she promises, retrieving her phone. The Eros pack heir strides into the room behind Gabriel, dressed in one of the older man's suits. His hair is still wet, but no one at the party will hold that against him. Celine, Gabriel broaches gently, this is Drake Kavanaugh. Drake. Meet my daughter-in-law, Celine. Thank you again for saving me. My voice is a shadow of itself, weak and hoarse. I should be thanking you. Drake grins. It's not often I get to play the hero. I might even get a few dates out of this. My laugh is interrupted by a cough, but the warmth remains. This man is all light and charm siphon, nothing like Bastien. I'm glad I could be of help. I reply throatily. Do you remember what happened? Gabriel asks me, his salt and pepper brows furrowed. Like? I could forget. Number. I lie. I don't think I can bear the embarrassment of explaining the truth. 1 minute I was walking by the pool and the next I was in it. Sweet girl, Gabriel murmurs sympathetically. Bastien should have taught you to swim a long time ago. Our conversation is abruptly silenced by the sound of Odette's raised voice. What do you mean you can't? The door to the hallway is closed, but her words are as clear as day. Did you hear what I said? Your wife almost died. You cannot tell me there is anything more urgent than this. We all pause. And I feel a familiar lump in my throat. No explanation was needed. Bastien was choosing Arabella over Methode again. The same kindling flames I felt before confronting that horrible gossip ignited once more. Suddenly, I did not want to simply curl up and wait for Bastien to come sweep me home. No, I want to make him see what he's missing, and I know exactly how I'm going to do it. Tend. 1 tea. So, just so we're on the same page, you want to use me to make your husband jealous. I'm standing before a mirror again. In my second dress of the night, my hair has been blown dry, and though I still feel like death warmed over, I'm determined to rally. Unlike the molten silver dress, the pool destroyed, the emerald gown I now wear reveals far more than it leaves to the imagination. Its silk bodice appears almost painted on, and the flowing skirt is slit straight to my hip. I didn't say that, I hedge, smothering a smile. But if that's how you want to interpret it, go right ahead. Oh, I have no objections, Drake teases. I just want to make sure I know the plan. I'm quickly coming to like Drake. He is warm and easygoing, always ready with a laugh. Well, in that case, yes, that's about the size of it. Normally, I wouldn't dream of doing something like this, playing games or seeking petty revenge for Bastien's neglect. I know he cares for me as best he can, but part of me is still aching from the rejection announcement. Can I ask you something? I request, slowly working up my nerves. Of course, the young wolf replies. This will probably sound very odd, but I don't know a lot about our kind. I admit. Drake nods, appearing suddenly serious. I'm aware of your history. An apologetic look crosses his countenance. Gabriel notified my father when your stepfather ran. He thought he might seek refuge in our territory. Ah, I say simply. Then it won't come as a surprise to you that my knowledge of pack behavior and traditions is a bit lacking. He offers me a conceding nod. I heard something tonight I didn't understand, and I wondered if maybe you could explain it to me. Drake raises one dark brow. I don't suppose this has anything to do with the woman who pushed you into the pool. I gape at him. You saw? I have to say you're being a lot more forgiving about it than I would be in your shoes. He remarks blithely, all I can do is blink in surprise. But you didn't say. Drake shoots me a look. Harrows, don't tattle. You clearly didn't want Gabriel to know. I purse my lips. I think this hero stuff is starting to go to your head. What was your question, Celine? Drake laughs. What's the difference between marriage and claiming a mate? I can feel the vermilion flush heating my cheeks. The future alpha does not look surprised. You mean marking? Yes. That is exactly the word those horrible women used. Well, Drake clears his throat. Marriage is only half of mating's severity a legal union, but to truly claim one's mate you have to mark them. Like scent marking. I clarify. Yes, he answers. Only this is permanent. It's a bite which infuses your mate's scent into your body so that it may never be washed off or covered up. Marking your mate is the ultimate commitment soothie. It solidifies the soul bond, connecting your wolves completely and making it impossible to be parted. I can feel a lump rising in my throat. So if someone lost their wolf, Drake sighs deeply. I don't have an answer for that one. You're the only person I've ever heard of experiencing that. And I have no idea if it'd be possible to bond with someone who has been disconnected from their soul. I blink away a rogue tear. It's not like it matters. I may not even have a fated mate. I was just curious. Plenty of people marry without marking each other, Celine. Not every union is divined by fate, he reminds me. I know. I offer up a watery smile. Drake TSKs and takes my face in his hands, brushing my tears away with his thumbs. At that moment, the parlor door swings open, and an animalistic snarl fills the air. Take your hands off my wife.